Hi, and welcome to another edition of Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. Coach James Short here, aka Shorty, and welcome to another edition. It is with a great honor and a privilege with this amazing guest that we have today. He is an inspiration to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. John Toomey is an international speaker, writer, and thought leader. His background in high performance roles in professional sport, including 7 Australian rules football teams, and culture development roles in 2 national Australian soccer clubs as a coach of an Olympic gold medalist, brings richness and depth to all his presentations. He held a phys ed degree from Deakin University, did his master's studies in applied physiology at Victoria University. He studied and taught human consciousness as an avatar master for 15 years. I'm looking forward to unpacking that. And has lectured at multiple universities in PE and medicine. He served for 5 years on RMIT University School of Health Sciences Program Advisory Committee. He's delivered over 3,500 corporate presentations, spoken at conferences worldwide, published over 700 articles, completed 4 national thought leader tours in Australia, and has appeared on multiple podcasts globally. Such an honor to have him on ours today. John speaks across Australia, North America, and more recently in Europe. In 1980, John co-authored Australia's first exercise to music leadership course. In 1983, he developed and taught the first fitness instructor model. And in 1998, he authored Australia's first advanced resistant training module for fitness leaders. I think I may have taken one of his classes back in the day in the 90s, and the first certificate in wellness leadership. In 2000, he authored Australia's first fitness industry specific Pilates teacher training course. At the time, Pilates teacher training operated almost exclusively in the dance industry. He also serves as a professional surf lifeguard in Victoria from 1978 to 82, and between 83 and 84, he played in Victoria Amateur Football Association state team and was selected in the All-Australian Amateur Football team. Currently, John is a global chair of the Global Wellness Institute's Workplace Wellbeing Initiative, the world's premier advisory group on workplace wellness. I'm looking forward to unpacking that. He is also an active volunteer and head of wellbeing for Men's Health organization, The Male Hug. Oh, so good. In 21, he self-published his second book, In It for the Long Haul, a guide for workers and their families on how to create personal success in the fly-in, fly-out working lifestyle. John is an avid runner, an ocean swimmer, and has 3 adult children, 6 grandchildren, and he and his partner, Lassen, split their time between Melbourne and Laguna Beach in California. John, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Really appreciate it. Oh, it's an honor and a privilege, mate. Welcome.
Well, James, he sounds like an impressive bloke, doesn't he? Isn't it funny though? But isn't that life though? You just, you lock onto things and you think, oh, I think I'll do this now, and you do it and you get it done, and then you find the next thing and you move on, and then at some point you look back over your shoulder and go, wow, got to do a fair bit, Along the way, you get to work with incredible people who, like I was so lucky when I was 20. I was in my 3rd year of phys ed, and I was working at a place called the Golden Bowl in Melbourne. It was a legendary indoor sports centre. And I was working in the gym, and they brought in a new health director from the United States. His name was Chris Jones. And Chris had been lecturing and studying at Oregon State University. He's actually the original drummer out of the Hollies.
Wow.
Left the band to go and study phys ed, and he was a national basketballer in the UK, and he was in the British Lions squad, good athlete. And I thought he was the most surly bugger that I'd ever met. He wasn't very friendly. But in the end, he was my greatest teacher. I mean, the guy taught me how to write. And he used to sit at the back of my lectures and critique me afterwards in a really loving way, and he just taught me so much. And I just look back and I think, wow, I was just so lucky to have someone like that wander into my space,
I want to sort of unpack that for a minute, actually. And that's, I guess, the role of mentors that, we have throughout our life, and the people that impact us so much. What do you see? Why is having a mentor so important? What does that help with people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think obviously Jonesy could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And he just helped. He used a lot of questions. Like when he taught me to write, we'd received a contract to write a sports trainer's handbook. And I went and asked him if he would edit it for us. And he said yes. And so I said, look, I'll write the first few chapters and drop it over to your place. Now, this is 1982. So there was no computers, no word processors. He said, I want you to write it on foolscap and write every second line and write in pencil.
Wow.
We'll do that. So I dropped it over to his place. And he rang me the next morning. He said, what in hell is this? He said, come over to my place. So I come over and I was a bit sheepish, you know. And he made us a cup of coffee and we sat down and he put the first page there and he looked at the first line and said, what are you trying to say? And he just kept asking me questions. He said, look, that bunch of words there, isn't there another word you could use to replace that? And he just kept pulling it out of me. And about 3 hours in, I got it. I knew how to write. It was so cool. So he could see there was an intelligence in there, but my problem was communicating it. So I think mentors, good mentors can see the qualities in the people that come into their space. And if they're patient, they can bring it out, you know, and then, you know, who knows what can be created from there.
And that's the difference, I guess. I think you hit the nail on the head around having those good mentors. It's not necessarily about telling the mentoree what to do, but it's about extracting the information out of them by asking really good questions.
Yeah, well, none of us like being told what to do, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Totally. And
yeah,
so,
I'm grateful for Jonesy, really am.
oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So with your career and what you've been up to, you would have seen some massive changes in both the health and fitness industry, the wellness industry, and particularly with the initiatives that you're working on now.
Yeah.
What have you seen the biggest changes within the area that you're working with now?
Look, I think probably, you know, people might be shocked when I say this, but back when I started out, Western science was God and medicine was God. And so we
Mm.
bowed down to everything and we made sure we didn't do anything that would get the disapproval of medicine or, you know, people in academic positions. But I realized along the line that what that does is it basically suffocates curiosity. It suffocates trial and error. And where I really hit a wall was when I started working with elite athletes, because some elite athletes just do not fit into the parameters of your Western science textbooks.
Yep.
Or sometimes there's an athlete that's got an injury problem or some sort of physical ailment the Western medicine couldn't fix, you know? And so you either be belligerent and stick to your beliefs, or you start looking outside the box and start exploring alternatives. And case in point, there was a fellow by the name of Ben Holland. He was a great footballer. He played for Richmond and then he went to Melbourne. His brother Nick was a very good player at Hawthorn. And when I first arrived at Richmond, we were going through the list and the medicos said, oh, Ben, he's a bleeder. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, oh, if he gets a corky, he's gone for 3 or 4 weeks because he just bleeds. And I said, why is he a bleeder? They said, we don't know. We've done all the tests. There's nothing there. He's just a bleeder. And I said, wow, so you're going to give up at that? Well, we've done every test. And so the CEO of the club was in the room and I knew I was being a little bit cheeky, but my job's to care for the athletes and my job is to give my best service to the fans of the club. So I said, well, do you mind if I take him to see a Chinese physician? They might have a different perspective. And the club doctor, like I could see him start to boil in front of me, you know. And the CEO said, yeah, why not? Can't hurt. So he went to the Chinese physician, who was an old guy, and he's speaking broken English. And he goes, and he checked him all out, did a lot of stuff. And he said, bad chi problem. And he pointed down to his thigh and up through to his torso. He goes, big blockage, I fix. So he gave him some acupuncture. Then he gave him these herbs. And he told him how to boil them up when he got home. And And Benny was a great kid, very, very disciplined. And I rang him that night and said, "How you going, mate?" And he goes, "JT, you owe me big time. I'm boiling these herbs and it's stinking the house." I said, "Well, are you going to drink it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to drink it." So he followed the protocols and he never, ever missed another game and he got a few corkies, but he didn't bleed. And I think that over time, what's happened, especially the internet's opened things up, is that people are becoming more curious again and more broad-minded. And what we're realizing is that medicine is very limited in its viewpoint.
Mm.
It's not about wellness. It's become so, I suppose, hijacked by pharmaceutical interests and medical device interests that it's all about finding a problem and then using a drug or a surgery or something like that. And so there's a very limited perspective around wellness. And that's why we've got integrative medicine popping up everywhere, because there's doctors that don't want to live in that environment. So I think that in right across wellness and fitness, we're now starting to realize that we can be bold and we can step up and go, actually, I don't need to be concerned if some doctor thinks that what I'm doing is wrong, because I'm confident that I know what I'm doing here. And there's really good research to support what I'm doing here. So there's more boldness and things are opening up. And just a final point on that, James, is that, see, a lot of people are really concerned about AI. And I must
Mm.
admit, I've had some concerns too. But then I was talking to a friend the other day, and I mentioned in there that I taught the Avatar course for many years, exploring consciousness, which Steve came and did with me, by the way. And there's a few people that have not had a good experience on that course because the only thing that it champions is personal responsibility. And if you're a person who wants to still sit in blame, you might find the Avatar course difficult. So it's got a few bad raps, not many, but there's a few. But there's hundreds of thousands of good raps. But when you do a Google search on it, you get all the bad stuff first. But my friend asked ChatGPT about it and he got a glowing review because ChatGPT's vacuumed up everything. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think this is going to happen with well-being now, that when people start asking ChatGPT questions about wellness, they're not going to get the limited perspective. They're going to get a sort of a mix of everything and all that. Like there's something like 20 million peer-reviewed articles out there related to nutrition therapy in cancer. All
Wow.
that's going to be there now. So I think it's sort of exciting times ahead.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you hit some really important points there. I mean, just from a personal experience around looking at alternatives, my daughter's on the basketball pathway, and one of her goals is to play college basketball in the US. And looking at, her mind's constantly racing. But going down the doctor path, it was like, yeah, cool, you can take this or take this. But then going down the more traditional ways, like, okay, cool. How about journaling? How about meditating? How
Mhm.
about praying? And so that has opened up a whole new perspective for her to allow her to quieten the mind compared to taking this or this or this. So it's been once again a beautiful journey. Looking at, I want to unpack the wellness side, because obviously in the real estate space, there's high stress, there's high performance, there's numbers, there's this and that. How does the wellness and the well-being of someone have a big impact on the high performance culture, the high performance uh, sales or property management? Like if you're looking on a business sense, how can their wellness impact that side of a high performing team?
Look, I mean, it's all so interlinked, and you and I could probably spend 3 hours, right? But you see, where my attention immediately went to was moral code.
Mm.
And if you've got a strong moral code and you don't do anything to go against it, then you're going to like yourself. And the really interesting thing is that in real estate, as we know over the years, there's been a lot of opportunism, you know, people being told half truths, maybe even being told lies to just get the sale across the board and, dummy bidding at auctions. I mean, all that stuff is so dishonest. And the people who are doing those things, they know they're dishonest. And so all those things just erode your sense of who you are, you know? And, I've met some brilliant real estate agents who are incredible people, but then there's others that we affectionately refer to as land rats, you know? And it doesn't mean they're bad people, but they've gotten into some bad habits. So when, you're running sort of agendas to get as much money out of people as you can, or to get a person to put their property on the market so you've got some stock, and you're not coming from a place of incredible care, it's going to gnaw at you. It's going to interfere with your sleep. It's probably going to lead to you drinking too much. And it's going to lead to you being reactive and a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious. But see, I look at real estate and I think, and especially residential real estate, what you're dealing with there is people's homes. You're dealing with the place where little kids grow up. Like I was talking to my son the other day, and they're moving from where they live. And I said to my son, "How you going, mate?" And he said, "Dad, I'm exhausted physically and emotionally." And I said, "Why emotionally?" He said, "Dad, because this is where the boys were born." He
Yeah.
goes, "No." And he goes, "Now we're leaving." And he goes, "There's a lot of memories here."
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that's beautiful. And it's true. But imagine if when you're working in real estate, if you're really honoring all those things and taking incredible care of people, the results are going to come because
Mm.
good intention is always rewarded. And we don't have to be slick, and we don't have to be, you know, we don't have to be sharp talkers. We can take incredible care of people. And so I think that when people come into this space with a lot of care, but again, you've got to be strong, you've got to be a leader, because sometimes when people are selling a house or buying a house, they're struggling with making decisions, and you need to be supportive and help them with that. And sometimes that means taking a strong stand. But if it always comes from care, you're going to go to bed at night and really like yourself, you know, and your mind is going to leave you alone and let you sleep. But when you're not doing the right thing, you talk about, your daughter's busy mind. As an adult, when we're not doing the right thing, we've got a busy mind all the time. And when we've got a busy mind, we then get distracted, we forget things, we miss things, and so our performance drops through the floor. So, I think when we've got a really strong and robust moral compass, and it takes a bit of work to develop that, and then we have the courage to live by it, then we're going to make good decisions. And that's such a
Huge.
bonus. And we're going to like ourselves, and people, and here's the big one, when we operate from that place, people trust us.
Mm.
And to be in the real estate industry and to be known as somebody who can be trusted, that's gold. But you can't get there if you're not prepared to play the long game. You know, that doesn't come overnight.
I love that. That's so huge. And that moral code and that care factor, I think so often it gets misplaced because, we're people just after the next deal or the next deal, the next deal, and it's so reactive rather than, as you said, like playing that long game and identifying what is that moral compass for me, and how can I bring that care factor into one myself, but then also to the people that I work with. And I think that then, as you said, that shows trust, that shows integrity. It shows so many different facets, and then you become. So correct me if I'm wrong. When we come from that space, then people are magnified that they're attracted to us because that's what we're displaying. Would that be a fair call?
Oh, you bet. And you know, people can smell a rat, and I think that when you are a person who's really trustworthy, you don't have to tell people you're trustworthy because
Yeah.
they know, they hear it from other people. There's two great movies that show that transition so beautifully and so powerfully. And for any of your listeners, if you want to sit down and watch a movie, and both movies take a person through humiliation and hopelessness to get to where they really need to go, to where they become who they really are, and they become their best version of who they are. One of them is Jerry Maguire.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
beautiful movie. Like, man, he was put into the pit of humiliation, you know. And the other one, and a lot of people don't get the movie, is Castaway.
Ah,
You know, and Tom Hanks played this loud, arrogant, bombastic, everything about his work is important, you know, to the point where his personal life is getting pushed into the background. And then he ends up on that island where he eventually has to face himself. And the soccer ball with the handprint on it, that's him facing himself, you know?
yeah.
And eventually he becomes this hardened, purpose-driven warrior who, when he arrives back, he's compassionate, he's kind, and he knows how to do the right thing, you know? So, and sometimes when we've been operating in our egos and we've been ripping people off or, you know, corralling people into deals and that sort of stuff, and that happens in every industry, sometimes the only way back is exercising some extreme humility. And that means, you know, as one of my mentors said, for some people, that means going scrubbing public toilets for a while.
Yep.
But for others, it can be just go and help out at a soup kitchen or a food bank and just do the stuff where you're being in service to people who are never going to buy a house from you, you know?
That's beautiful. And I just want to grab that. One of those key words that you said then was ego.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it rife through the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I see those high performers think they're on a pedestal, but you have a conversation with, you know, someone like yourself or myself, and we can read through it like a book. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a couple of questions that you need to ask, and you know, they're usually in tears because it's a front. How can someone obviously then doing the acts of service and being there for a charitable organization or time, what's the impact of not dealing with your ego, do you feel, and how can that bite you on the bum?
Yeah, well, see, ego is like, for example, I mean, ego can be good. I mean, if it wasn't for somebody's ego, there wouldn't be a Sydney Harbour Bridge or an Opera House, right? Or
Yep.
a Westgate Bridge, you know? Somebody's big ego got that one across the line, right? But the problem is that, you know, when you get to that point and the ego gets a little bit drunk on its power, that's the point where it's got to go and do something and recapture its humility. Yeah. Otherwise, self-importance takes over. And as I say, when you get on that bandwagon, eventually you're going to step in dog shit and you're going to
Mm.
walk it through somebody's room. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I reckon that if, you know, your listeners, if you are a star performer and people are starting to pat you on the back in your industry and you're feeling a bit good about that, that's okay. You're doing good work. So that's good. But now what you can do is go and find on a daily basis three or four or five other people out there in the industry who are having a crack, even if they're your competitors, and send them an email and say to them, I notice what you're doing. Keep doing it. You're taking care of people. I'd buy a house from you, you know? Instead of getting your tires pumped up, pump other people's tires up, you know? Give of yourself. And because you've become a little bit of a star, it'll mean something to them that it's coming from you, you know? And we can always do things like that have got some humility to it, that have got some care. And, you know, and also there'll be times when you see somebody in the industry who might do something that's a bit dodgy, and you can just say to them, hey, let's catch up, go for a walk and have a conversation with them. Say, look, I noticed you did that. What happened? Why did you end up there? How could you do it better next time? And help each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that. I love those two analogies because that's that's people helping people. And then, when we can help one another, it's better for everyone. It's better for the people within the industry. It's better for the industry. It's better for the clients. It's better for everyone that's involved in, buying, selling, renting real estate on all the different levels. So that's a
Yeah,
that's a beautiful analogy.
one of the things I love about Test cricket and cricket in general is you'll see Australian fast bowlers going to India to coach Indian fast bowlers
Yeah.
because they want them to be good. Because when they turn up to play, they want to have a good contest, you know.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, and it's like if you're my competitor, James, and I help you, I mean, look, a classic case, golly, Mark Rudin, who's now, and Mark might be embarrassed me telling me this story, but it's a true story, right? And he's currently an A-League coach. When he was playing at Sydney FC, in his position, there was a couple of young guys coming up, and he found himself out of the team. And he was captain at Sydney FC, right? And he found himself out of the team, and he rang me, and he was really upset. And he said, "These guys, they're kicking me bad passes on the ground. They're trying to make me look bad so they can get me out of the team, so they can have my spot." And I listened to it all. It was just blame, 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 blame. And when he finished, I said, "Mark, let me tell you something, mate. You're part of a team. This is a team. Do you know what your job is right now? It's when you go out in the track, do everything you can to make those two young guys that have got your spot, make them the best players that you can make them. Because if you never get another game, you're going to leave that team in a really good space. That's your job." And he went, "Oh, wow, okay." And he said, "I'll get that. Thank you." And off he went. He did that. And 2 weeks later, he had his spot back in the team, you know?
Totally right. And that's the thing. And it's coming back to, as you said, the being of service and how we can lift others up around us, which therefore helps your own journey as well, doesn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
John, John, on the show, we have a little tradition here where we find out a little bit more about our guest. We have a 60-second quiz. Are you willing to play?
sure. Why not?
All right, excellent. Here we go. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, Castaway.
Honestly, favorite food?
Favorite food? My God. Well, it's got to be Mexican.
Love it. Favorite holiday destination?
Gee. Oh, probably Fiji.
Nice. And do you have a morning routine?
Yes. So my alarm goes off at 1 minute to 4.
Okay.
I tune into the 3RW news, 4 o'clock. That's the only news bulletin I listen to in the day, just because I want to know what's going on in the world. Then I'll sort of lay there and have a bit of a lie-in until about 4:15. Get up, turn the coffee machine on, 2 minute cold shower, put the training gear on, drink a litre of water, make a coffee, and come into my computer and check what correspondence is coming overnight. So that's the morning routine.
Fantastic. And do you have an evening routine?
Yeah, I just try to be in bed by 9 o'clock, so I don't watch very much television. My partner, she was always a bit of a night owl, but she's now loving going to bed early. So, and no more details about the routine after that.
That's so funny. If you could choose five inspirational people to have dinner with, who would they be? They could be dead or alive.
Yeah, wow. Wouldn't that be interesting, eh? Well, I think, Nelson Mandela's has got to go down as one, I suppose. I think, wow, I mean, it's so interesting. I think Muhammad Ali, a really good friend of mine got to spend a whole week chaperoning Muhammad Ali, and she won't talk about it. She said it was the most amazing
Wow.
thing of her life. Quite incredible. Um, I think Mahatma Gandhi, I think, would be interesting. And somebody who's always been incredible interest to me, and I don't know why, is Benazir Bhutto, the former Pakistani Prime Minister.
Okay.
And I think the other person would have been Queen Elizabeth. And the reason I say that is because during the pandemic, a lot of leaders got so drunk on their own power and they did destructive things. And I thought about, which world leaders do I know that got a really good handle on power? And she's the only one I could think of. And I felt the reason why she had such a handle on power is because of just her incredible, unyielding intention to serve. So I think
Mm.
she would have been amazing to sit and talk to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And if you were prime minister for the day,
Mhm.
what's one thing that you'd do or change?
Um, well, can I have one list? Okay, this is what I would do. I would extend the Medicare levy to naturopathy, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and osteopathic medicine. And I would make medicine purely market driven. People choose who they want to go and see. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what's your best piece of advice?
Just be kind always. Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. And so what's some exciting things coming up on the horizon for you? What are you working on at the moment?
Well, right now I'm promoting seminars for Men's Health Month because June is Men's Health Month, and June 10 to 16 is Men's Health Week. So my partner and I are heading back to the US on Sunday for 4 weeks, and we're going to be tripping around a lot over there and doing a lot of things. And then we'll be back, and I'll be right into June. And at the same time, at the Global Wellness Institute, we're currently finalising the agenda for our Global Workplace Wellbeing Summit, which will be one presentation per day for the month of June. So
Wow.
there's a lot happening. Yeah.
That's huge. That's fantastic. And so how can the audience reach out, follow you, find out more about what's coming up? Where's the best way to send them?
Yeah. So they can always find me on LinkedIn, or my website is wideawakewellness.com.au. And they can also find me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts with my podcast, which is Good Bloke Not Woke, which is all about healthy masculinity. And our next few interviews, we're going to be really exploring the whole thing of domestic violence and violence against women. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. John, really appreciate it. I love chatting with you. Thank you so much for your depth, for your knowledge, for your energy and your experiences. Really appreciate it. Thank you for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks, James. And by the way, how good a human being is Stevie Jensen? Hey?
He's a legend. He is a legend.
Thank you, mate. You're doing great work, and I appreciate the time with you.
Thank you very much.